Hello students, today in this video we are going to start with chemistry. So the topic which we'll take up is the periodic properties part 2. In part 1 we have already done about the attempts to classify the elements, we have done the modern periodic table, and we have also done the atomic properties and their variation along group and periods. So let's see what we are going to do in part 2 now. So list of topics which we'll be covering in this part 2 are introduction to transition elements. We'll discuss about transition series. We'll discuss about general properties of transition elements. We'll do introduction to inert gases. We'll focus on the general properties of inert gases, and we'll do some question and answers. So let's start with these topics. So in this video, we are starting with transition elements. So what are transition elements? Transition elements are those elements which have properties similar to metals and non-metals. We know that this is a modern periodic table in which we have metals on this side, on left hand side, and non-metals on the right hand side, right? And we do have inert gases. This group is of inert gases, and these are the transition elements. These are the transition elements. That is, they are the metalloids. Metalloids are those which have properties similar to metals and non-metals. Like some of their properties resemble metals and some of their properties resemble non-metals. So this is what is the transition elements. And inner to transition elements, we have inner transition elements. That is the lanthanides, and the actinides. Right. So this is what is the transition element. I think you got it, that these are the transition elements which have properties similar to metal and non-metal. Now, why we are studying about transition elements? What is the importance of transition elements? See, these group includes few of you can say very important elements, like it includes the coinage metals. Coinage metal refers to the metals which are used for making coins. Like we have copper, we have silver, we have gold. So they all are present in transition series. As you can see that this is copper, this is silver, this is gold. These are coinage metals as they are used in making the coins. It also includes the noble metals. Noble metals are those which are quite less reactive. For example, we have silver, we have gold, we have platinum. Let's locate few of these in the transition series. So we have silver, we have gold, we have platinum. So they are noble metals because they are least reactive. So they are, you can say they hardly react with some other substance. So they exist in nature as monoatomic. That is, they are hardly found in a combined state. And the transition elements also includes industrially important elements. Like we have those elements which have an industrial importance. That means in industries, they are being used to carry out different processes. Like we have copper, we have iron, we have nickel, we have palladium. So we have few elements which are industrially important, and most of them are catalyst. That is, they are used in any process as a catalyst. That is, they increase the rate of reaction without getting you can say change, without producing a change in themselves. So let's locate them. Copper is this, iron is this, even manganese is used as catalyst, nickel is used as catalyst, right? So likewise, we have the palladium also used as catalyst. So these are the elements which are industrially important. There are certain metals which are used for defensive purpose. Defensive purpose means they are called as strategic metals. They are called as strategic metals because they are used to protect our country. Like we have titanium, we have zirconium. So we have few elements which are actually used in making the, you can say the war equipments, like we have the swords, etc. So that means transition elements are quite useful to us because they have great importance. Now, let's study about the transition series. Like we did in the part 1, that we studied the groups, that is the vertical columns. This is group 1, group 2, group 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. But these transition elements are not studied in groups. They are studied in the series. They are studied in series. And this is the first series. This constitute the first series, which is scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc. That is, this series actually consists of how many elements? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each series has 10 elements. Like the first transition series, they have the 10 elements ranging from scandium to zinc. Similarly, we have the second transition series ranging from yttrium to cadmium. And similarly, we have the third transition series ranging from lanthanum. This is the third transition series ranging from lanthanum to mercury. Right. So this is how we have the series. So this constitute the first series. This is the second series. And this is the third transition series. And inner to this transition elements, we have the inner transition series. That is the, you can say, the series of 14 elements starting from lanthanum to lutetium and actinium to lawrencium. Right. So these are, that is, they are called as lanthanides and they are placed at this place. And the actinides, they are placed at this place. So this is how the transition series and the inner transition series is placed in the periodic table. So, as I told you, inner transition series includes lanthanides and actinides, and each series has 14 elements. So, out of these these are, you can say, a series of 15, because out of it, the first element is placed here, and similarly, the actinium is here, and the rest elements are placed below the periodic table. And do you know that why these inner transition series are placed separately from the main body of the periodic table? This is because in order to, you can say, have a systematic format for the periodic table, or you can say the systematic layout of the periodic table, these are not included in the main body and they are placed below the periodic table, or you can say they are placed below the main part of the periodic table. Now let's study about the characteristics of transition elements. So what are the transition elements characteristics? So the first thing is that they are typical metals. We know that metals have tendency to lose electron. So they are typical metals because they can easily lose electron, and that is because they have low ionization energy as compared to the non-metals. We know that in a periodic table we have metals, then we have transition elements, or we can say metalloids, and then we have non-metals. So the transition elements, they have ionization energy higher than metals but less than non-metals. And due to this, the transition elements can easily lose electrons. So we can say that they are typical metals. Now let us talk about the, you can say that how they exist. They are mostly solid. Except we have mercury that is liquid at room temperature. And you know that mercury is the only metal which is liquid at room temperature. And why is it so? Is it because mercury element has weak metal-metal bonding inside its lattice. That is, the metal-metal bonding, that is the atom bonding, is not that strong in the mercury as compared to the other elements. So that is the reason mercury is liquid at room temperature. And if we talk about zinc and cadmium, they are also solids, but not hard solids. They are weak solids. They are weak solid. And what is the reason? Again, the metallic bonding in them is not that strong. Now let us talk about their melting and boiling point. So transition elements, they have high melting and high boiling point. And the reason being the presence of strong metal-metal bonding inside them. So they possess high melting and boiling point. That refers to that more energy is required to melt them or to boil them. Another characteristic is they have high density. They have high density. We know that we have metals, then we have transition elements, and then we have non-metals. So if we compare their density with metals and non-metals, so we have seen that they possess high density Now if we talk about the density, we know that density represents mass per unit volume. So if we compare their density is quite high in comparison to metals and non-metals. Now let's talk about their ionization energy. We know that we have metals, and then we have transition elements, and then we have non-metals. So if we compare their sizes, we know that transition elements are smaller than metals, but they are bigger as compared to non-metals. So we can say that as compared to metals, the transition elements, they possess high ionization energy. But in comparison to non-metal, they have low ionization energy. And ionization energy, I think you remember that it is the energy that is given to remove the outermost electron from the valence shell of an atom when it is in gaseous state. So we can say that their ionization energy is higher than metals but lower than non-metals, because non-metals are quite smaller than transition elements. And as I told you, they have tendency to lose electron. So that is the reason after losing, they form electropositive ions. For example, if I have copper can lose one electron, and after losing, it will acquire a positive charge. That is, it becomes copper electropositive ion. Another characteristic is that most of them form colored compounds. Most of them, they form colored compounds. That is, their compounds are not non-colored, are not colorless, they are colored. And why they form colored compounds? So the reason is that the transition elements, like other atoms, they possess the shells. But inside the shell, they also have the subshells. They have subshells inside the shells, and due to these subshells, the electron can absorb the energy from outside, or like if we give them energy, it can absorb that energy, and it keeps on jumping within the shells. So due to this, you can say that there are electron transitions possible within the same shell. That is the reason the D block elements are colored. And they do have the tendency to form complexes. They do have tendency to form complexes. And if we talk about their valencies, or if we talk about their oxidation states, they show variable oxidation states. Like if I talk about iron, the oxidation state of iron can be 2 positive and can be 3 positive. That is ferrous and ferric. Similarly, the nickel can also form, it forms +2, or it can also form +3. Similarly, the chromium also exhibit the variable oxidation state, that is 2 positive, 3 positive, and 6 positive. And if we talk about the highest oxidation state exhibited by a transition element, so that is for osmium. That is for osmium. I'll just write the spelling for you. That is for the osmium, and the oxidation state is +8. So +8 is the maximum oxidation state which is shown by the transition element. So they have variable oxidation states. They are paramagnetic in nature. Paramagnetic is that a substance when placed in a magnetic field get attracted towards the magnet. So when any substance gets attracted towards the magnet on placing it in magnetic field, it shows a paramagnetic character. So we have seen that transition elements are paramagnetic, that is they get attracted towards magnet when they are placed in the magnetic field. Now let's do inert gases. That what are inert gases? So in this periodic table, this 18th group consists of inert gases, and that are helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon and radon. So these are the inert gases. They have a special property, that is they have completely filled shells. That means the outermost shell is fully filled. Outermost shell is fully filled. Right. And due to this, you can say the complete shell, that is due to it, we can say that the octet is complete. And completion of octet refers to that they are quite stable. They are quite stable. And that is the reason they don't have tendency to accept or you can say donate electron, or we can say they remain inert. That is, they don't prefer in reacting with some other substance because they have the stable noble gas configuration. So that is the reason they are called as inert gases. Inert means they don't react with any other substance. So because of their complete octet and because of their stable nature. Now let's study about the general properties of inert gases. If we talk about the atomic size of the inert gases, we have seen that like other groups, the atomic size increase down the group. Like you have helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon. So as you move down, every time a new shell is being added, due to which the nuclear charge decreases and size increases. But if we compare its size with the 17th group, we know that this is a 17 and this is a 18 group. So as per rule, the 18 has to be much smaller. 18 has to be much smaller in comparison to 17. But it's not like that. We have already discussed that the fluorine is the most smallest element of the periodic table. Otherwise, the 18 should be much smaller. That is, the neon should be much smaller, or you can say the helium should be smaller. But actually in them they have weak forces, that is called as weak van der Waals force. They have a special force, that is weak van der Waals force, due to which their radii, the atomic size you can say, is more than the 17th group. But as we move down, nuclear charge decrease and size increases. That is, it follows the same pattern as it is seen for the different groups. Second, let us talk about the ionization energy. So if we talk about ionization energy, in whole periodic table, they have highest ionization energy. The reason being, they have complete octet, or you can say they have stable electronic configuration. So they neither lose or accept electron. That is difficult because of their highest ionization energy and because of their stability and octet completion. Now, if we talk about electron affinity, what is electron affinity? It is the energy released when electron is added to the outermost shell of an atom. Their octet is complete, so they don't have, or you can say they don't show the attraction towards the incoming electron. So that shows that they do not require that electron. But if in case we need to add the electron, we have to supply the energy to an atom. Right. So electron affinity in the case of inert gases is going to be positive. Otherwise, for other groups, it is always negative because energy is released by an atom. It is not given. But here, the attraction for the incoming electron is negligible because of the complete octet, or the you can say the noble gas configuration. Therefore, if we need to add an electron, we have to supply it with energy, and forcefully we have to add that. So that means electron affinity is positive for inert gases. Now let's talk about the melting and boiling point. So melting and boiling point of inert gases is low because of the weak forces, these weak van der Waals forces that we discussed, that these forces exist between the molecules. So due to this, the melting and boiling point is low. Next, all noble gases, they are colorless, they are odorless, and they are tasteless. And how do they exist? I told you that they don't combine with some other atom because of their stable noble gas configuration. So that is the reason all noble gases exist in nature as a monoatomic atom. So that means they are monoatomic. They don't combine with some other atom because of their octet completion or because of their stable electronic configuration. Now let's do few questions and answers. The first question is that we need to write the use of helium, neon and radon. That means what is the use of helium, neon and radon? So we have seen that helium is used for, so the first question is write the use of helium, neon and radon. So the use of helium is that helium is used in weather balloons. Helium is used in weather balloons. And the mixture of helium and oxygen is also used in oxygen cylinders. It is also used in oxygen cylinders by the divers, that is the one who dive deep into the seas, or by the mountaineers, that is who actually climb different mountains, and it is also used by the asthma patient, that is the patients who are actually cannot breathe properly. And we have seen that if we talk about the liquid helium, that helps in maintaining the low temperature. So wherever in any process we need to have low temperature, we can make use of liquid helium. Or we can say that liquid helium is the cryogenic fluid. Cryogenic fluid is that fluid which is used to lower the temperature, which is used to maintain low temperature. Second is, what is the use of neon? So if we look for the uses of neon, so neon are used in the signboards. Neon is used in the signboards. It is also used in protecting, the electrical instruments. It is also used in protecting the electrical instruments like the voltmeter, ammeter, etc. So there also it is being used. It is also used for filling, the sodium vapor lamps. So these are the uses of neon. Now let's look for the uses of radon. So we have seen that the radon is used for the treatment of cancer. It is used in the treatment of cancer. And also it is used to detect the metals. So these are the uses for radon. So I think you got it. Another question is that we need to name few coinage metals and the strategic metals. The coinage metals are copper, silver, gold, and strategic metals are titanium, zirconium, etc. And let's define them. Coinage metals are those which are used in making the coins, and strategic metals are those which are used in making the war equipments, or you can say that they are used for the defensive purpose of the country. Another question is, which group elements are mainly used as catalyst in various chemical process? So transition elements are used as a catalyst in various chemical processes. For example, nickel is being used, platinum is being used, palladium is used, silver is used, even silver oxide is used. So likewise, the transition elements as alone or present in a combined form, they can used as a catalyst. And I think you know that what is catalyst? Catalyst is a substance which increases the rate of reaction, without undergoing, I'll just write here, without undergoing any change in itself. Without undergoing any change in itself. That is, if you are adding catalyst, let's say 2 grams, so after the completion of reaction, you are going to get the catalyst same as you added. That is, the form is going to remain same. Even the quantity, that is the 2 gram, is going to remain same. Another question is, name the first inert gas that shows the existence of its few compounds. So, the first neon gas, which was actually said that it can exist in a combined form, was xenon. Or you can say is xenon. Right. So the compounds of xenon are like, it can exist in this form. That is, it basically combines with fluorine. It forms XeF2, right? That is called as you can say one of the xenon fluoride. It can also form the another fluoride, that is XeF4. It can also form XeF6, right? It can also form the oxide, that is XeO3, another oxide XeO4, the another oxyfluoride XeOF2 and XeOF4. So these are the few compounds which the xenon actually exhibits. So it is an exception to all other inert gases that it can combine with other atoms, like it is forming the fluorides and also the oxides and also the oxyfluorides. Thank you for watching this video, and for more learning experience, you can visit to www.wasserax.com. So with this, we finished the part 2. I think now you got the complete understanding about the periodic properties and about the transition elements and also the inert gases.